Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's Mililani Minute. I'm Pastor Kaleb Barrett, and thank you for joining us today. Today, we're going to look at what it is to be a good neighbor. In the Gospels, we see that we are called to love our neighbors as ourselves. That's the golden rule. But who is our neighbor? So in Luke chapter 10, Christ tells us who our neighbor is, and he does so through a parable. And the parable is called the Good Samaritan. It's chapter 10, verses 25 through 37. It's a little bit longer, so I'm not going to read it today, but I encourage you all to read it. But a quick summary of this parable is that there's a man on the side of the road who is injured, and several people just walked by, but a Samaritan came by. A Samaritan was somebody that everybody in Israel looked down on as somebody less than. But the Samaritan came and cared for the man and brought him to an inn. So he didn't just care for him, he didn't just bring him there, but then he paid for him to make sure that he was cared for a while, and then told the innkeeper, keep taking care of him, I'll come back and pay the bill, don't worry about it. So the Samaritan made sure that the man was okay. So this is what it is to be a good neighbor. To put it simply, it's everybody. Everybody's our neighbor, and we need to be taking care of our neighbor. It's treat our neighbor as ourselves. So if we're in a tough spot, we want people to come and help us along and make sure that we can get through it. In the same way, that's what we should be doing. Now, through this virus outbreak, we know that this is a very difficult time, and it's a difficult time for all of us to be getting through. It'll look different for different people, but we want to make sure that everybody's being taken care of as we go through this. We know that everybody's struggling in different ways, but this is the time that we should be reaching out and caring for one another. So how can we do that? Well, one is that we can make sure everybody has enough food on the table. We know that in times like these, we know that many people have lost their jobs. Many people's hours have been cut, and the bills don't stop. The need for food doesn't stop. So we can just go and make sure that everyone has enough food. If there's enough food for one, there's enough food for two. So let's make sure that we're being generous for those around us that we know may not be getting enough. And reach out to them, make sure they're eating enough, and encourage them to let us know, whether it's you as an individual, me as an individual, or the church. If you don't have enough food to feed your family, let us know, and we'll make sure that that is taken care of. We'll make sure that you can eat. So make sure those around you have what they need. If you have extra things like toilet paper, make sure your neighbor has that. Now, if you're one of those in a higher risk, I'm not saying go out and potentially put yourself in harm's way in that way. If you feel called to, that's fine, but otherwise stay at home. But that doesn't mean you can't call your neighbor or have somebody else come and help with that, help coordinate with that. If you have something that you want to help give, call somebody else to come and make sure that, see if anyone in the community needs that. But if you're not in the higher risk category, I encourage you to go to each of your neighbors, knock on the door, make sure everybody's okay, make sure that nobody needs anything. If nobody's home or they don't want to come to the door because of the concern of catching something, leave a note. Just leave a note, leave your number, leave your email, leave maybe just where you are, make sure that they know you're from the area, and just let them know that, hey, we're here if you need anything. But then bring food to them. If they need food, bring food. If there's somebody that's in a higher risk category and they can afford food, they just can't go get it because they're afraid of going to the grocery store and getting sick, offer to go and get it for them. Offer to leave it on their step so that they can leave it for a little while and make sure that everything's okay, and then bring it in. I know plenty of families, that's how they're doing it. They're leaving it on the doorstep so that those that are inside that are at a higher risk can get the food a little while later. But we also know that in this time, people just need somebody to talk to. Be that person. Offer that. Whether you're just on opposite sides of glass or whether you give them your number so that they can call and just chat. This can be a very lonely time. It's a time that we're all stuck inside. Many people can't go to work. And many people live alone. So if you're somebody that you know that there's a neighbor, especially somebody that's a little bit older, that's just alone, make sure that they have some interaction. Just go talk to them. Again, if they don't want to talk face to face, invite you in for coffee because they're just a little concerned because of the illness, talk to them through the window, talk to them through the glass, give them a number, have a phone call. But we want to make sure that everyone has what they need, both financially, food-wise, somebody to go and run errands if they can't leave, but also somebody just to talk to. So I encourage you as you go through this week, think about that. Think of what it is to be that good neighbor and do what Christ has called us to do in being the good neighbor. Love your neighbor as yourself. So let's go out to our communities and make sure our neighbors are taken care of. Thank you and see you next time.